refers to the study of the use of language beyond single sentences. Discourse is an important study for the English language because it allows individuals to express their ideas and thoughts effectively, understand and interpret the perspective and opinions of others, and build relationship through effective communication. Discourse analysis is also critical for language teachers and researchers to better understand language use and development. And for this video, it allows to answer the questions: what is critical discourse analysis? What are the four types of discourse? What are the three categories of literary discourse and discourse key takeaways? Critical discourse analysis is an interdisciplinary method in the study of discourse that is used to examine language as a social practice. Discourse analysis tends to explore social relations, social problems, and the role of discourse in the production and reproduction of power abuse or domination in communication. The method is aimed at the form of structure, content, and reception of discourse in both spoken and written form. Well, CDA explore the relationship between language and power because language both shapes and is shaped by society. CDA offers an explanation of why and how discourse work. The social context in which discourse occurs influences how participants speak or write. For example, if you write an email to apply for a job, you will most likely use more formal language, as this is socially acceptable in the situation. And at the same time, the way in which people speak ultimately influence the social context. For example, if you are meeting your new boss and you have to prepare it for a formal conversation, but all of your colleagues are chatting with your boss in a more casual manner, you would do the same as everyone else. In this way of changing what is expected. By examining these social influences, critical discourse analysis explore social structures and issue even further. Critical discourse analysis is problem or issue oriented. It must successfully study relevant social problems in language and communication, such as racism, sexism, and other social inequalities in conversation. The method allows us to look into the socio-political context, power, structures, and abuse of power in society. To simply put critical discourse, it is the study underlying ideologies in communication. A multidisciplinary study explores the relations of power, dominance, and equality, and the ways these are reproduced or resisted by social groups via spoken or written communication. Language is used to establish and reinforce social power, which individuals or social group can achieve through discourse. Furthermore, let's talk about the four types of discourse. The first type of discourse is description. It helps the audience visualize the item or subject by relying on five senses. It could be the look, the sound, the taste, how it feels, and smell. Example of descriptive mode of discourse usually can be seen in say and novels. And description is also frequently used in advertisement. Let's look at this example from the advert for one bottle by one movement. Beautiful, functional, versatile, and sustainable. At 17 Oz to 500 ml, it's the only bottle you ever need. Using double-walled stainless steel, which will keep your drinks cold for 24 hours, piping hot for 12. It's tough, light, and dishwasher safe. The advert uses descriptive language to list the qualities of the bottle as you observe. The description can affect us. It may even persuade us to buy the bottle by making us visualize exactly what the bottle looks and feels like. Second to discuss is about narration. Narration aims to tell a story. A narrator usually gives an account of an event which usually has a plot. Example of narrative mode of discourse are novels, short stories, and plays. Consider this example from Shakespeare's tragedy Romeo and Juliet in the year 1597. So, Shakespeare uses a narrative to set the scene and tell the audience what will occur during the course of the play. Although this introduction to the play gives the ending away, it doesn't spoil the experience for the audience. On the contrary, because of the narration emphasizes emotion, it creates a strong sense of urgency and sparks interest. Hearing or reading this an audience, we are eager to find out how the pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Next to discuss is about exposition. Exposition is the third type of discourse. It's used to convey background information to the audience in a relatively neutral way. In most cases, it doesn't use emotion and it doesn't aim to persuade. Example of discourse exposure are definitions and comparative analysis. What is more, exposures serve as umbrella term for mode such as exemplification or the illustration. The speaker or the writer uses examples to illustrate their point. For example, this news above. Michael Jackson is one of the most famous artists in the world. His 1982 album, Thriller, is actually the best-selling album of all time. It has sold more than 120 million copies worldwide. It shows cause and effect. The speaker or the writer traces reasons, where is the causes, and the outcome, where is the effect. Another example is I forgot to set my alarm this morning and I was late for work. It shows comparison and contrast. The speaker or the writer examines the similarities and differences between two or more items. Another example is the definition. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is shorter than Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So it shows a definition where the speakers or the writer explains a term, often using examples to emphasize their point. The fourth to discuss for the fourth type of discourse is argumentation. Argumentation aims to persuade and convince the audience of an idea or a statement. To achieve this, argumentation relies heavily on evidence and logic. For examples, lectures, essays, and public speeches are all examples of argumentative mode of discourse. Take a look at this example, an excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s a famous speech, I Have a Dream, in the year 1963. In his speech, Martin Luther King Jr. successfully argued that African Americans should be treated equally to white Americans. He rationalized and validated his claim by quoting the United States Declaration of Independence on the year 1976. King argued that the country could not live up to the promises of its founders unless all its citizens live in a freely and possess the same right. The three categories of literary discourse. There are three categories of literary discourse: poetic, expressive, and transactional. First to discuss is poetic discourse. So, poetic discourse is a type of literary communication in which a special intensity is given to a text through distinction or distinctive diction, such as rhythm, rhyme, style, and imagination. It incorporates in different poetic devices to emphasize the poet's expression of feelings, thought, ideas, or description of event and places. Poetic discourse is most common in poetry, but is also frequently used by writers of prose. So, let's look at this example from the tragedy Macbeth 1906 by William Shakespeare. In this example, Macbeth mourns the death of his wife, Lady Macbeth, and ponders the futility of an unfulfilled life. The use of literary devices and poetic techniques, such as repetition, metaphor, and imagery, evokes strong emotion. Next to discuss is expressive discourse. It refers to a literary writing that is creative but not fictional. This writing aims to generate the ideas and to reflect the author's emotions, usually without presenting any facts or arguments. Expressive discourse includes diaries, letters, memoirs, and blog posts. Consider this example from the Diary of Anais Nin in the year 1934 to 1939. In her diaries, Nin reflects on her feelings of being a woman and an artist in the year 20th century. She wrote this passage in preparation for leaving France at the start of World War II. We can read her sense of the disconnection between her intense inner world and the violence of the outer world. This example is a trademark of expressive discourse, as it delves into personal ideas and explores inner thoughts and feelings. And lastly is the transactional discourse. It is an instructional approach that is used to encourage action. It presents a non-ambiguous plan that is clear to the reader and is usually written in an active voice. Transactional discourse is common in advertising, instructional materials, guidelines, privacy policies, and business correspondence. An example from the novel The Midnight Library in the year 2022 by Matt Haig is an example of transactional discourse. So, this is a clear plan, a list of instruction. Haig uses transactional discourse as part of his work of fiction in order to add realism to the relative part of the story. And that concludes my report. Thank you.